if you did want to take a look at all of the references that those publications have, you can do that, again, all in one place. This does get slightly daunting because even for 30 documents, it's pulling back 1,000 references. So being able to view it in an interface where you can manipulate it a little bit is nice. The thing that's a little bit different with the references as well is not all of those references from those papers would have been things indexed in Scopus. So you would see as you kind of scroll through that maybe not all of the information is captured, but in every case you do have the lovely link out to the library's holdings, the check for full text. So if it was something you wanted more information about, you could make that connection there. And then, so we're following our research forward and backwards in time as another approach to doing our literature reviews. So in addition to viewing the references, we can also view the cited by documents. So that means for whichever of these 30 documents have since been cited by other researchers in their own works, you can actually look at all of those in one place. And again, you can export them all. If you create an account within Scopus, you can save them to a list and look at them later. You can view them in the same search results format and further manipulate that. So that's just a nice added bonus. Within Google Scholar, you can see, for this particular article, it has been cited that many times, and if you click on that, you can look at the citations, and you can get the references, but it's not all in the same place. So it's just a nice little feature with that. The other nice thing within these author profiles is they will list the co-authors. So this is another research rabbit hole that you could go down if you're so inclined. And I know literature review searching is just a giant research rabbit hole, and you sometimes have to put some bumpers up to make sure you don't go off too far. But in this case, if there were authors here that you hadn't come across or hadn't started looking at their publications, you could start doing that here as well. And same thing, you can view this list of people in the same Scopus search results and further manipulate that as needed. So those are a couple of highlights within the author profile. Now, Scopus automatically generates these. But if you are a researcher and you have one of these, you can create an account within Scopus and ensure that the information is accurate. So that's a helpful tip if you are a researcher, and you can further connect it out to things like your ORCID ID or other researcher profiles that have additional information. So just gonna make sure that I've captured all of that. Yes, so Scopus is pretty robust with these author profiles. They say they've got 17 million of them. It's very international in scope, but Scopus's subject coverage is primarily within the sciences, technology, medicine, social sciences, with some arts and humanities, but maybe less so. So depending on what your area of study is, you may just have to take into account that Scopus may not be as comprehensive or robust as needed. So the other thing within Scopus that I want to draw our attention to is a new tool that has recently been added called Researcher Discovery. So the purpose behind this is more to help researchers collaborate and find each other that might not be in their current network, but it could also be very useful from a literature searching for literature reviews point of view, because you're doing topic searching. So if I were to do my atheism and health topic, if I were sort of just getting started, trying to figure out who some of the researchers in that field might be, this could be something to do at the start of a literature review process, or again, to just kind of make sure finding all of the key people in a particular area. And from there, you can kind of see who's around. Maybe they're known to you, maybe they're not. You can export this list as an Excel file if you wanted to tuck it away and contact people later. But for each person, you get a little snippet, and then you can go fully into their profile. So this researcher discovery section is based on Scopus's author profiles. So they're very connected there. And I don't have much more to say about that because it's pretty new and it's fairly self-explanatory. So, switching gears a little bit. When traditional database searching might fail you, or might, you're just not finding the types of things that you want, or maybe you've hit a wall and you're thinking, I need to see connections differently, or just approach this in a completely different way. And there have been a lot of tools that have cropped up in the past couple of years that are taking a more automated or algorithmic based approach to finding relevant and connected literature. So some of these tools do it by citations. Some of them, it's kind of hard to tell what they're doing. But in all of the cases, they do seem to have this visual aspect, which is kind of different and neat. So Connected Papers is one of these new tools that I've been playing around with a little bit this fall. So I've discovered in playing around with it that I think I really need a research project to fully immerse myself in, to have a better understanding of a subject and the literature within that subject area to fully understand the usefulness of these tools. So this is a brief introduction to a tool that could be useful, and I hope in the future to be able to explore it a little bit deeper myself, or to talk to grad students who are using it and playing around with it and seeing how they're using it.
I'm using a leak map.
Okay, yeah.
That it is a single seed. A leak map, it is multi-seed.
Yeah. So there's things like LitMap, ResearchRabbit, Elicit, Open Knowledge Maps.
Is it free, this one? No.
Well, that's one of the limitations. So within these different tools, some of them are free to a point, and within Connected Papers, you get 2 free graphs without creating an account. Then if you create an account, you get 5 free graphs a month. And if you sign up for a plan, then, and you're paying money for it, you do get more access.
We can ask UNB.
What?
We can ask UNB for that.
Yes. I have found that if you use incognito browsers in different browsers, it is a bit of a workaround so far.
Wow.
And if you use different computers. So when I was prepping for this, I maxed out my free accounts. And thankfully on Mark's computer, I should be fine. So with this, some of the tools you can search by subjects, but this tool in particular is meant to find one article. So you have an article that's your origin paper or your seed paper. And so I'm going to pull one from David's profile. And you're going to try and find, it's going to find relevant papers based on this. And it's going to do a fun graph in a second. And the visual is the wow. So we'll just give it a second and do that. So this is a tool meant to visualize the relationships between related papers using that origin paper. We'll just click that off for the moment. And how the Connected Papers works, they say, if you go to the About page and read more about how this all works, I highly recommend that for any of these tools that you use to get a sense of how they do function and what information they're pulling from. Because because they all might be doing something a little differently. So in this case, they talk about, they're using the concept of co-citations and bibliographic coupling. And I'm not sure 100% what that means, but my understanding of it is basically if the citations and references of papers are similar to the one that you've put in, then those papers are probably related. They might not have the same citations and references, but if they are similar, they're making these connections. And so the algorithm arranges them in different clusters, and the shorter lines between different nodes, the shorter the line, the more connected they are. And the different colors relate to the year of publication, and the size of them relate to number of citations. So it's all fun looking at the graph, but I don't find the graph super useful. I want a list. I want to look at what are these things and what could I do with them. So the key things to look at within here are looking at the graph in a list view, in my opinion, where you can get the full list, and it gives you a percentage of how similar each of these papers are in the list to the origin. And so this is something that I've looked around a little bit, and I don't tend to get a ton of larger numbers when I do this, but things still look related. So it's all good. So you could go through here, you could download all of these results. They are only exportable as a bibtext file format, so that is a limitation of this. But you can get either the PDF or a full text link out, because most of these do appear to be coming from an open access source, which is convenient. And the other couple of things, and you can filter that as well. If you go under filters, you can ensure that, you know, what you're finding is going to come from something you can actually access. The other two things that could be useful, we'll say could be, are these prior works and derivative works. So what these are not ones listed in that original graph, but within the prior ones, it tells you here what they are, but they are papers that are most frequently cited in the references of the papers from that list. So this could be another way to go down a research rabbit hole and find additional citations. And typically they are older works. They could be seminal or influential in the field if enough of the other papers are citing them. And then derivative works are the papers that have since cited those papers in the list. And again, finding newer articles could be useful. So it is a fun visual representation. The jury is out so far, in my opinion, on whether or not this is the way to go. But I think these tools could be useful as supplementing for your literature searching process. It's just a matter of how many do you look at, what do they cost, are they free, how much access do I have, and how much time do I want to spend on something like this.
Alex, I've definitely had cases where I've worked with that, with, say, anthropologists, and because it's not a citation tree, because it is showing people who have done things and cited a lot of the similar people that you've cited, but you wouldn't necessarily have went to them. I've watched those OG moments where people are like, why is she coming up? I don't know her. What field is what? Oh, wow. So it's pretty powerful that way.
Yeah, and it's as powerful as the sources it's drawing on.
Right.
And so in this case, it is coming from the particular scholarly, semantic scholar paper corpus,
Right.
and it is more science and social sciences. So I put in one of my own that was an information literacy based one, and it didn't pull back a ton of relevant things. There was one that I hadn't seen before that was a conference paper, so it really does depend on what it's pulling from. So, and I'm not sure what time we started, so I'm going to wrap it up now because we don't want to go on too long. And so are we doing questions
We can
now?
do questions. Somebody
okay.
has some questions, and I'll just.
Yeah, I'm
grab
having
the text
questions.
there.
I'm having questions.
Sure.
Or we can later on. I don't know.
Maybe because of the time, we'll
Yes,
keep
that's
we'll
why,
keep things
yes.
flowing.
Yeah, yeah. And like I say, I'll share some things because I do have a subject guide about literature reviews that does have some links to other tools on it as well. So I will
Okay.
leave this for you.
Thank you, Alex.
So thank you very much, Alex, for that presentation. And I have to say that was a very succinct definition of bibliographic coupling and co-citation analysis. That was awesome. So hi everyone, my name is Julie Morris. I am the Collections Analysis and Bibliometrics Librarian here at UNB. And I'm going to be talking to you about text and data mining. I'm trying to figure out how to change my slides. I'm struggling.
Me just advancing your slides?
Yeah.
We just. Oh, sorry, I have you on the wrong screen. Okay, let's take you here.
Perfect.
Now you should be able to go. This way.
Oh, cool.
Sorry about that.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to talk about what text and data mining is. I was going to talk about some case studies, but I'm not sure we have time for that. I'm wondering if these are even the right slides. Anyway, we're going to go with that. Looks like I may have sent the wrong ones. But we're going to talk about different products, copyright, and the guide that we have here. So what is text and data mining? Well, there's more than 1.5 million scholarly articles that are published every year. That is an overwhelming amount of data and information. So text and data mining is a great way to innovate and explore this very large corpus of texts. With the increase in digitized and digital materials that are becoming available, TDM is actually going to continue to grow as a trend in research, which is why this is really an interesting field. It's especially coming up in arts and humanities, but well established in STEM fields already. So what is text and data mining? I'm overlaying my notes here. So it's interdisciplinary in nature. It borrows techniques from linguistics, computer science, library science, and statistics. It uses tools that can retrieve and extract information and meaning from a corpus of texts. Basically what it does is it uses natural language processing to help machines read text. TDM can be used to extract new knowledge and information from these texts, and you can look for patterns and trends within them that can help with things like doing systematic reviews of literature, looking for new trends in scholarship, and things like that. It does use the three main coding languages for this methodology are Julia, Python, and R, but you don't actually have to know how to code to do this. And I'm going to show you some tools that don't require it. Awesome. So there's a process that I like to follow that goes information retrieval, pre-process your data, and analyze your data. So it was really helpful to see Alex's presentation, which was about information retrieval, because the first thing you need to do is have a corpus of text. So you need to know what you're going to be running your analysis on, and knowing how to use keywords and find the literature is really important. So this can include looking for items like journal articles, newspapers, Twitter feeds, and other relevant sources. The next thing you're going to do is pre-process your data, which means like you're going to clean it, you're going to organize and structure your data. You want to take out any noise, duplications, and any inconsistencies with your data. Some ways you can do that would be like, one example would be taking out stop words, which are those little words like the words and or then that are not really relevant to your research topic. Or you want to look for punctuation, take out punctuation, and maybe tokenize your texts by breaking it into elements that can be read by the computer. And then finally, you're going to analyze your data. That's when you get into the fun stuff like visualizations and all that good stuff. Yeah, I definitely sent the wrong slides, so I apologize. So I'm just gonna go with it. Okay, so I'm going to talk about some case studies that are really interesting. It might give you some ideas of what you can do, and then I'll talk about different products. So one example from arts and humanities that I found really interesting, and I got to go to a conference and meet Alexopoulos. They were using U.S. newspapers to measure economic uncertainty and explore consequences of uncertainty on productivity, investment, employment, economic output, and the stock market. And they were doing that by looking at videos of news coverage. Another option would be looking at within the French department, they have something called the vocabularies of identity, where they've basically taken texts that are relevant to Acadian heritage, and they've graphed it all out to see what kind of insights they can get about Acadian identity, which is really interesting. In terms of business cases, you can do things like analyzing Twitter feeds, news releases, company conference calls to understand the effects of news on the markets. You can understand the company's reputation in the media. So my background is actually within financial services before I came to UNB, and that was something that we were doing, was using news articles to do like due diligence work. You can also do things like make predictions about the market and political trends. There are lots of different products that I'm going to zoom through. Constellate, Gale Digital Scholar Lab are two that we subscribe to here at UNB. Voyant is open source, and there's like Google Ngram Viewer, which looks at books. And then OpenRevine is a cleaning tool that is open source. It's very powerful, and I've done some training on that, so if anyone has questions about it, I'm happy to answer them. So this is Consulate. I am especially interested in energy and sustainability, so I did a keyword search around eco-communities in Germany and energy, and this is the result that I got. So I plotted the publication dates from 1990 to 2022. Community was started in the 90s, which is why I chose that date. And then you can see a little word cloud down at the bottom with keywords. So for example, we see the word sustainability, housing, cities, things that we really want to see and understand what these articles are about. And then you can graph some of these keywords against each other and see how they've been used within the corpus of text over time, if the use of those words is increasing or decreasing, or if the use of a word became really popular, as is with sustainability in the 2000s, things like that.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Can we use that? It's very interesting, okay, what you said.
Yeah.
About the keywords. Before we use like Scopus, something like,
Yeah, so...
like to find out sometimes the right database, because we don't know exactly when you are on the early stage of your research.
Yeah.
You don't know where you're going. This is what's happened to me right now.
This is a great product to do that, and I should have mentioned, because these are not great slides, I did have a slide that talked about what Constellate is. It pulls data from JSTOR and Portico primarily, and then you can do analysis within it. In a moment, I will talk about some other uses of Constellate, but I just wanted to point out that this is some of the output that you can do using. They have guess this is a good time to talk about it. So Constellate has all sorts of training materials that will teach you how to do Python. So this is really meant to be a teaching and learning platform. So if you have your own data sets that you want to do analysis on, this program is going to teach you how to do the coding to get the output that you want. There's all sorts of tutorials, there's live classes that you can sign up for, and these are all available to you as UNB students because we subscribe to it. So I really encourage you to take advantage of it. And they'll take you through, it's meant for beginners, so they'll take you through the stages of beginner, intermediate, advanced, and they'll teach you everything you need to know. And then some of the outputs you can get are like word clouds and like n-grams and things like that. So I definitely recommend looking at it. I've done some of the courses and they're very accessible. I was going to talk about Gale Digital Scholar Lab, but maybe I'm not sure how much time we have, so I'll just zoom through it real quick. So this is another platform that we have access to that gives you the option to pull data from Gale products, and you can also upload your own content to do analysis. So this is actually a set built by our friend Erik Moore, who is doing some research on suffragettes and women's political history. So you can do a search, it'll pull in data from anything we have through Gale. Again, this is something that we subscribe to that you can use, and it'll plot in this case he's searched for news articles, so we can see the occurrence of news articles over time and what kind of sentiment there was about them, like if they were positive, negative, etc., and then they can be plotted. This is Google Ngram Viewer. Again, this is showing the basically like how often these books are being talked about over time. I won't get into this, it's not super relevant here, but I will talk about Voyant, which is open source and is a really great tool. So Voyant is open source, and you can pull in data from a variety of sources. 4 minutes? Okay. You can pull in data from a variety of sources. I had done one where I pulled in, you can take like a URL, put the URL into Voyant, and it will do analysis for you. It'll create things like word clouds, geographic representations. I did have some, I did have more screenshots, but unfortunately I had the wrong slides. That is my fault, so apologies. Geographical representations, so it's very cool. I took a loyalist diary and put it into Voyant, and it actually mapped out like where that loyalist had been across North America and Europe. It does really interesting things like collocate terms and give you like n-grams and things like that as well. Also talk very quickly about OpenRefine, which you can use to clean your data. I'm a big fan of this. So once you have all of your data in like an Excel or a CSV format, you can upload it to OpenRefine, which is an open source tool. And you can do all of the pre-processing that you need to do in terms of like taking out punctuation, making sure your cases are all the same, etc., etc. One thing I really like about it is you can rename things within the list. You can do what are called facets, and then there's what's called a clustering function, which is awesome. So if you have, like in this case, we have different occurrences of T and M. If you want to cluster them all within one category, and just have that be a T and M category, or T and M, T ampersand M. If you want to cluster them together, you can clean up your data very quickly and very easily using this tool. I'll also just quickly mention medical subject headings. So if there are any health sciences students here, you can do TDM on MESH headings using PubMed, Pub Reminder, Yale Mesh Analyzer, and Phrase2Mesh. These are ones you can explore, and they're available on our website for you to link out to. So now the stuff that is less fun, copyright. Unfortunately, at this point in time, there's no clear legislation about what you can and cannot do around TDM. That hopefully is going to change. I know that the government is doing some consultations, and hopefully we'll have more guidance soon. So if you're going to do TDM, please reach out to a librarian. We have a very great team comprised of myself, Erik Moore, Josh Dickinson, Mark Bragdon, and we can help you navigate all of these things. And the place to go for all of that information is our LibGuide on text and data mining. Here you will find links to the tools that I mentioned and some information about what it is, but you'll also find my contact information. So if you want to get in touch, please do. I'm really happy to help with any projects that you might have on the go. Okay, thank you so much.
Hi everybody. What time are we looking at? I have got to teach right after this, so I'm going to talk quickly and go through some slides, and I'm going to hand it over to Mike. We've got sort of a different thing going on where we've set up a photogrammetry station in the back, and Mike can show you that. But what I want to talk to you about today are some adventures that Mike and I have been on the last couple summers working with anthropology, and specifically with archaeologists in UNB anthropology. I'm the liaison librarian for anthropology, and Mike is the manager of digital imaging here in the libraries. So, this excellent colleague here is Gabe Hreinig, and Gabe works basically, he specializes in coastal hunter-gatherer cultures in the Northeast, mainly Wabanaki, so that would be Mi'kmaq, Maliseet, Passamaquoddy, and Penobscot. And he runs this field school for several years now, every summer, grant-funded field school, down East Maine in various places where they'll set up a dig each summer. And this is his colleague, Amy Scott. Amy's a bioarchaeologist, and she also runs a UNB field school, a bioarchaeology field school, and this is at Fortress Louisburg, where basically they're excavating cemeteries, both French settler cemeteries and then New Englanders who came up during the siege. So this is an idea of what the one in Maine might look at, just one particular quadrant here. And then this is what activity would look like at, you can see the recreation of Fortress Louisburg in the background there. What we're up to, I'm mainly interested in how they're creating data, what's going down when and where it's then getting transferred to, where all that data lives over various stages of its life, what its life cycle looks like, how it gets managed, how it becomes published research in the end, and where might we librarians come in and say, you know, we could help organize parts of this. Anyway, that's what I'm up to down there. And also while I'm there, I wave my arms about in front of swirly diagrams about publication and data management, scholarly communications cycles. And then Mike has forgotten more about 2 and 3D imaging than I will ever understand in my life. He's a deep specialist. And he will go to these sites and he'll do site photography, he'll do 2D imaging with a stand of artifacts, he'll do 3D imaging of the sites themselves and of artifacts. So here he is really getting down close to this amazing faceted glass button that was found there at Louisburg this summer. And there's the kind of close-up you can get with this great new lens and camera body that he has. A couple summers ago, we started off with this little, first efforts, right? This is out in the open, so I had to get the sun off them. This is my other duties as assigned. And then the following year, we co-applied with anthropology to the experiential learning pot of money at UNB, and were able to get this canopy and some more lighting and different things to make for a better fully armed and operational imaging station. It's really amazing the stuff he does. So here's an example. This is a tiny little flake that's sitting by, that's a 1 centimeter cube, an official 1 centimeter from France. And so you get the idea that that's a tiny flake there. That flake looks like this. These are centimeters. So that's this one flake. Up here, there's like this little bitty V. That's a strike mark because this was a scraper. That's that V with, you know, the macro lens that he's got. It's just amazing. So he also instructs while we're out in the field. This is in the field lab at the Down East School, and he's talking with the ones who lead this lab about ideas that he's experimenting with photogrammetry. Photogrammetry is where you basically take many shots of an object as it is slowly rotated around, and that's what he's got set up back there is our sort of mobile lab that he works with. Mike also works here sometimes in the fab lab with students. Here he is with a grad student. They did a 2D and 3D imaging of this point from the Devil's Head site. So this was actually, you know, a couple years ago and with lesser equipment than we have available now. So it still came out pretty well. And then we thought, hey, for the Fab Lab, just for fun, why stop there? Let's throw that STL file into the Prusa slicer, and then we can print out our own facsimile of this point, and that way you could have a teaching aid that you just, you know, pass around that's plastic. So essentially, you know, we're doing research down there, we're doing out in the field, we're doing instruction, and then we're helping create, for instance, collections of 2D and 3D. This is obviously just a still, but Mike can show you some Sketchfab stuff. Collections that can be used for teaching and research. And then we're also doing writing and publication with those. Mike and I, along with the two leads at the Down East Historic School, put out this article about the importance of embedding library personnel in projects like this and being part of the research team and learning their practices.
All right, so with photogrammetry, basically the essence of it is like Erik said, you're just taking a bunch of photographs around an object and software stitches it together, creates a depth map. Creates a depth map, and then, you know, from that it can generate the 3D image. And there's a couple different, there's actually many different ways to do photogrammetry. One, you could take the camera and just go around an object, taking different photos. Or another way, turntable photogrammetry, where the camera is stationary but the object spins. And there's pros and cons to each. There's a lot of different apps for the phone. There's Polycam. New iPhones and iPads have built-in LiDAR-based photogrammetry, which is kind of neat. So it's, you know, there's a lot of different applications. There's a lot of different levels. With this, I'm using a little turntable that I can control with my phone, which is kind of great. I can get it to take a photo and then just say, okay, turn 8 degrees, and then I'll snap the next photo. So that's really handy, just to have a very controlled environment. Because if you're just walking around something, it's hard to judge, okay, am I going 8 degrees? And one of the things you want with tabletop photography is something like this, a marker palette. Because the photogrammetry software actually looks at the background of images to try and map out where the cameras were positioned, and from that build that depth map. And with these, it's great because every one of these points is a slightly different configuration around it, so it's all different. You could equally use something with just a random pattern on it. It just can't be uniform because then the software doesn't have anything to register.
So you use this to calibrate the camera?
Yeah, well, it's not so much for calibrating the camera. It's you can use this in the software after the fact when you're building your 3D model, because there's known points. There's 50 millimeters between each of these spaces, so you can define that measurement within the software, and from that be able to do precise measurements. I know a lot of geologists we'll use photogrammetry with a drone, and they'll get a whole cliff face, and they'll have some known measurement in there, and then they can extrapolate from that and determine other measurements within the image. Usually from a point cloud with that, just it's such a massive amount of data. So with photogrammetry too, I mean, one of the big things, you want even light. So, I mean, if you're just doing it with your phone outside and on an object, look for a cloudy day, something like that. It'll come out just a little bit better. You can also do some post-capture processing in Photoshop just to even the tones out a little bit. And essentially, I mean, with the turntable photogrammetry, studies have shown that any more than 8 degrees, like say if it's 6 degrees every time you turn, there's just too much information for the software. So 8 degrees rotation is pretty much ideal. So you want 45 different shots. And then with something like this setup, we've got the macro lens. I can show you. You can zoom in on this. I mean, you can see in this image, it's sharp here, and then it gets blurry after that, and that refers to the camera's depth of field. And what that means is basically what area from the lens is in focus. And with the macro lens, it's quite a narrow depth of field. So a lot of times what you have to do is a technique called focus stacking. So if this is your object, you can focus here with one shot, and then here with another, and then here with another, and then stack those together, sort of blends them in to become one sharp object the whole way through.
At each interval, right? Like
Yeah,
every
so
single
what I
interval
would
you
do, if it was just something, really basic and cylindrical is a little bit easier because then your focus isn't changing too much. But minimum 45 shots for good photogrammetry. Maximum, there's an example we'll show you on there again with Sketchfab, where it was close to 400 shots that I did of this one thing. So like every rotation, I do 4 or 5 focus stacking shots. And then what I do, say if I want to get the underside of an object, so you have your object down and you take all your photos around it, and you want to get the underside to have a full, you just basically put that upside down, do the whole round of photos again. The one thing to note when you're doing that, you need a totally different background if you want to get the underside of the object. So basically what that does is where you've got 2 different image sets, same object, totally different background. In the photogrammetry software, there's what they call tie points. So between the 2 image sets, it'll look at, say, a detail on the rock like this, and tie that together between the image sets. And it'll do that, millions of tie points. And what you can do is tell the software, okay, anything that doesn't have a correlating tie point, get rid of. So if the backgrounds are completely different, that'll be those 2 background sets. So that way it just isolates just your artifact or whatever you're doing the photogrammetry on. So we can show you a few examples over there. I was going to do it on this computer, but the Wi-Fi is pretty weak on it. Here are some examples. Like this is one of the ones that I did that was close to 400 shots with a lot of focus stack. And this was this little birdstone, and what this was basically the tail end of a bird carving that was used, I believe, as like a counterweight for a bow and arrow. I'm not quite sure how, I don't quite know the history of it, but it's about 1,500 years old. So it's kind of neat with the photogrammetry now. You can get all sides of it and a decent amount of detail in there too, which is really handy. And this actually had to downscale probably by a factor of 10 just to be able to get it online to Sketchfab. So it could be really quite powerful with the macro lens to be able to get that level of detail.
C'est magnifique. You can make a museum with that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, it's amazing.
and sometimes what we can do too is, say they're doing an archaeological dig site. So the actual site itself might be exposed for a month, maybe two, depending how long they're there. So it's a very ephemeral thing. So you can capture the actual dig site just to be able to kind of get that detail there, just to see, which is, kind of really interesting. There's a lot of different things that we want to do. I'd like to get a drone just to be able to do 3D of the whole coastline where these sites are over time, just to get the effect of coastal erosion. And sometimes we'll do kind of fun stuff where I got all the participants in the field school to be in the dig site, and I said, okay, just stand still for 2 minutes while I run around and take all these photos, so you can kind of get a sense of everyone in there, which is kind of neat. I mean, if anybody moves, it kind of changes it a little bit, but that's just kind of for fun. And sometimes too, you can just capture other details. Like this one shows the dig site, but then also the basically shell discard pile in front of this. So it gives you a little bit of context of, here's the hillside in front of it, which is how they discovered this dig site. But it's been really kind of handy. I'll just show us one last one. This is a whelk that was just completely littered all over one of the sites we're working on. But it's really kind of amazing the detail you can get with this sort of thing. Any questions with the whole photograph? I kind of went over that super quick because we were running low on time.
Just wondering, the camera you're using, they are CCD, HDRC. What kind of pixel? How do you use this camera? How you manage?
It's just I think one of the
so amazing.
Yeah, I mean you can use anything. Originally, I was using an older Canon, probably 18 megapixel sort of digital camera with a 50 millimeter prime lens.
Yes.
And that, it did all right, but with some of the smaller artifacts, you want to be able to get the camera in close to it. So then we got a 100 millimeter macro lens, and a newer mirrorless Canon R6.
So you're doing a slide image processing. You are not doing a lot image processing.
No, you want to capture it, as good as you can. I mean, sometimes. There are circumstances where it's like, well, I'm doing this on site and it's a sunny day. You can't help it. So with that, you can bring it into Photoshop or one of the free ones, like I think there's one called Darktable, where you can kind of even out those tones a little bit just to get better results. And there's a bunch of, because this is using a software called Agisoft Metashape. And just to build these renderings, the only drawback with that is you need a PC that's got a CUDA compatible GPU, and that just means basically a lot of the processing power has to go off onto the graphics card of the computer. And this software, the academic license of it is infinitely cheaper. I think it's like a $5,000 or $6,000 software, and the academic license is like $400 or $500. So it's a lot better. There's different free ones out there, like Meshroom, Zephyr 3D. And they're pretty good. Meshroom is really, it's not quite intuitive. There's a lot to it, but same thing. And basically, the better images you feed it, the better results will come out. But you can use your cell phone and get decent results. And then for something very quick, I mean, Polycam, it's an app for your cell phone. But it's a subscription. You get like 5 or 6 free ones, and then you have to subscribe. But it does a really decent job. So you basically it almost acts like a video camera. So you just walk around an object, and then once you've got your data set, you upload that to their servers, and they'll process it and spit back a 3D rendering, which is pretty neat. I think there's a few other different apps as well, and you know, all the new iPhones and iPads have that built-in LiDAR-based photogrammetry right in them. So it's going to be really handy. I think that'll be great for, you know, you find an artifact and you want to document it in situ, so you can kind of go all around it and capture that. Whereas, you know, something like this is good for, you know, something that needs a little bit more treatment to it. You know, like you have the artifact, and it's a really unique artifact, and you want to really document it, use it as a teaching tool.
Wow.
It's good for that.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Like can convert 2D images to 3D? Like have you faced this scenario where you have just 2D images? You know, like
Yeah, they're all 2D images that it kind of renders into the 3D.
so there is a converter.
Yeah, and a lot of times with this too, I'll do just regular copy stand photography just of the artifact, so then you've got it as a reference point for the 3D. But yeah, it's a new-ish technology, but it's really starting to really expand. I mean, you can use cell phones, regular DSLR cameras, drones. There's a lot of people doing this with drones, which is really neat, because then you can just program in the flight path. It'll capture everything for you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.